Hello guys, and welcome to another video, and today we've got another weird interaction, another strange mechanic, and I absolutely love this stuff, guys. I mean, this is Path of Exile for me. I don't know how many of these crazy mechanics are left undiscovered and people just have no idea that they exist until someone tries some strange things together and suddenly they realize that this thing is probably not working as intended, or maybe it is intended, I don't know. I really don't know with this mechanic. It's really hard to say if this is actually an intentional mechanic or whether this is a bug. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on, but this mechanic is to do with Dissolution of the Flesh. This is a unique jewel that drops exclusively from the Searing Exarch boss. And if you don't know what this jewel does, it has a very special mechanic that doesn't really exist anywhere else in the game. And what it does is, whenever you take damage like you would normally and you lose life, you'll instead reserve the life that you would have lost from taking damage. And if you want a more detailed explanation of this jewel, you can check out a video that I made a while back on this exact topic right here. You'll need to put up with the AI voiceover though, so sorry in advance for that one. But quick shout out to this comment for letting me know about this interaction, because I had no idea about it, and I'm pretty sure many people have no idea about it. And I've looked around a whole lot to see if I could find anyone talking about this interaction on other YouTube videos or on Reddit threads on both the main Path of Exile Reddit and the Path of Exile build Reddit, but I couldn't find anything. And so let's get into it. I'll briefly explain this interaction and then I'll showcase exactly how it works. So importantly, when you have Dissolution of the Flesh socketed into your build, if you reserve 100% of your life, you die. That's just how it works, and that makes sense, obviously. And I think the reason why this mechanic is not really known is because people probably haven't tried reserving life with reservation skills because, well, that would lower your effective health, right? Well, actually, no, because as it turns out, when you have a skill that reserves your life active while you're using Dissolution of the Flesh, if you take damage that would reserve all of your life and thus kill you, the oldest reservation skill will automatically become unreserved and you'll begin to reserve life in place of that skill instead. So if you didn't get that, let's showcase it in game. So here we have a character. This is a standard character. It's not a real build. It's just a character that I use to test things out. And most importantly, we've got the Dissolution of the Flesh jewel socketed into our build. There it is on the tree. And I also have some skills here equipped. They're linked to Arrogance Support, 3 reservation skills, and they're all linked to Arrogance Support, so they're all going to reserve life, and you can see them on the hotbar here. So when we switch them on, we're going to start reserving our life, and you can see that we have 374 life left out of our 3,920 life, so there's a 3,546 life reserved. And we're going to walk into a pack here and we start taking damage. You can see the reservation is increasing as we take damage. And did you see that just there? One of the reservation skills dropped off. You can see at the top, the Blood and Sand skill dropped off. That was the first skill that we reserved. And now we continue to take damage. And there goes the Herald of Ash skill. And that one dropped off automatically as well. So what happens is, whenever we take enough damage that would actually kill us, that actually doesn't happen. Instead, the oldest reservation skill that was active on you actually comes off, and then you can continue to reserve life against that pool of health. Now, this is a really important interaction for a few reasons, actually, and the main one that I can think of is one of the biggest downsides of using Dissolution of the Flesh is that you lose all of your energy shield. That's part of the jewel. That's kind of the balance that they put in with this jewel, is that you have no energy shield, and that means you can't use one of the strongest mechanics in the game right now, which is Eldritch Battery, to then have an additional aura using Divine Blessing. And that means you are losing a considerable amount of power when you use Dissolution of the Flesh, because you suddenly don't have that extra aura going. And this actually changes a lot. This one mechanic here means that you can actually reserve additional auras against your life, and suddenly your EHP is actually no different, but you have to be a little bit careful, of course. I wouldn't recommend reserving defensive auras against your life, but you could do what most people do with Divine Blessing, which is reserve your offensive auras, you know, things like anger, hatred, anything that's going to increase your damage. Reserve those against your life, because, you know, if they fall off, it doesn't really matter too much. You just wait until the reservation is gone from Dissolution of the Flesh, and then you can reserve them once again. And this is really important because of a few things that exist in the game. One is that you can get quite a considerable amount of life reservation efficiency, That comes from the wheel at the bottom left of the tree, the Champion of the Cause wheel, and also you can get the Mastery that comes on the reservation wheel itself, and that one gives you 20% increased life reservation efficiency of skills. And this reservation efficiency isn't going to interact in any way with the life reserve through Dissolution of the Flesh, but it will interact with your skills that are reserving life. And of course, you can use this interaction with Arrogance. I think that most people will probably try to use this interaction with Arrogance, but there is one really big problem with Arrogance, and that is that even at a level 20 gem, this has a massive cost and reservation multiplier. It's sitting at about 200% even when it's at level 20. And that means that you're going to be unable to reserve a 50% aura as a baseline, and you're going to need a lot of life reservation efficiency to actually make this work. And of course, there is the mechanic with Dissolution of the Flesh combined with Petrified Blood, where you have the option of Overleech and the use of mechanics like Strength of Blood. And of course, if you reserve more than 50% of your life, you're going to be unable to actually access that mechanic anymore, because your Overleech will be gone, because the leech will get topped off at your maximum recoverable amount there that is below 50%, and so that doesn't work anymore. Of course, you don't have to use that mechanic with Dissolution of the Flesh, but I think that the Petrified Blood mechanic in particular is really important. But Overleech is definitely one of those mechanics you can go without, and I think you could just use something like Eternal Youth for your recovery method. And again, if you want to check out any of that stuff, you can check out my other video, the episode 1 of Interesting Synergies. But I think the better interaction here is actually with a shield. This is the Prism Guardian. This is a unique shield. It's quite a rare shield, actually. And this one has a modifier on it: socketed gems cost and reserve life instead of mana, and socketed gems have 30% increased reservation efficiency. Now, this is really, really important because this shield essentially allows you to reserve life without any huge reservation multiplier. And that means that you can reserve life at a much lower amount, and it means that you're going to be able to reserve potentially even several damage auras against your life, and you can make full use of those damage auras, and then you can just have them on your skill bar, and if you ever take enough damage where you would unreserve these auras, you can just click them back on right after you stop reserving that life. And that's a really, really important interaction, I think. This shield in particular is so good for that, because you also get some gem levels on it. I mean, this is insane. And of course, you can use Blood Magic as well. I did check out Blood Magic a little bit. There is the benefit on Blood Magic that you get another 10% more life, and this could be quite crazy in a life stacking build. And what you could do with the Blood Magic is you just get the wheel, the Champion of the Cause wheel at the bottom left of the tree. That's right next to Blood Magic, so not much pathing needed there to go between those 2 points, but you get the life reservation efficiency mastery as well, and that means that you're going to be able to have a decent amount of reservation efficiency for those skills that you reserve against your life, and you can then use Eternal Blessing to reserve a permanent aura, and any of your other reservation skills are going to automatically reserve life, which means that they work with Eternal Blessing. And I think this is okay, but I don't think it's quite as good as Prism Guardian, because the thing with Prism Guardian that is so strong is that you still have your entire mana pool to reserve against. So you can reserve all of your defensive auras and defensive mechanics such as Petrified Blood and Determination and Grace, things like that, against your mana, and then all of your offensive stuff can be reserved against your life and socketed into this shield. And that means that you're going to have ridiculous amounts of power coming in from auras, but you don't lose any of that effective health. And this is kind of crazy. I feel like this is something that Dissolution actually needed, because it was the one downside of using Dissolution of the Flesh, of course, apart from the way how it functions and the way that you need to be mindful of taking damage and damage over time and things like that. But the loss of Energy Shield on the Jewel is really, really impactful in a meta where Eldritch Battery and Divine Blessing is so powerful. And this is a really interesting mechanic that's come up here. I think this is so crazy. And is this an intended mechanic? I think that's a really good question. Personally, I would say I think this is probably a bug, and I'll explain why I think it's a bug. I actually think what's going on here is Dissolution of the Flesh has a higher priority order when it comes to reserving life than reservation skills do. And whenever you would take damage that would kill you while you're also reserving life through a reservation skill, Dissolution basically bumps the reservation skill out of action, and then you start to reserve life in place where that skill was reserving life before. And I think that's all that's going on here, is that it has a higher priority in the queue. Maybe it's actually intended, and I feel like if this was intended, it should be a modifier that is actually written on the jewel itself, because it's a really, really important fact. What do you guys think of this interaction? Is this a crazy interaction? Now I'm making too much of it, maybe. I think this is really, really cool, and I think it makes a great use of Prism Guardian as well in the Dissolution of the Flesh build. Of course, that means you're not going to be able to use a two-handed weapon, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.